Hey, Mary Beth, are you here? Um, Robert, hi there. Oh, there's a Bailey's. Ken, hey, happy Sunday, everyone. I will be putting my sunglasses on because it's so bright. Hi, Marlene. Hey, Diane. Oh, lovely to see everyone there. So, yes, hi. It's I normally every year I've scheduled. Hey, Chloe. Um, oh, well, okay, Chloe. If you're just listening, I want to tell you about the herd of cougars that are in the trees back here. It's but that's fun. Well, I'd like to welcome everyone to Banff here. It's still just 29 past the hour, but yes, had a couple of really busy days up and down to Jasper. But just and yesterday we were delayed getting home. We were going to head home just about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We were going to leave Jasper, and then they did close the Icefields Parkway for avalanche control. Hey, Andy. And so that's when we turned around and I went back up to Medicine Lake and I went swimming. And I'm glad I did because I regretted not doing it earlier in the day. So you will see here on YouTube, I've got a couple of other videos from from Jasper. Please feel free to share them. Now I like to put these tours up a lot earlier, but hey, that's the way life is. Quick hello, in case you don't know me, although I recognize most people here, hey Rosie. But my name is Patrick, of course, and this is home. You might hear trains in the distance. And it is, the car said, now I was on my bike earlier today, but I fell off twice because it's so crusty and icy and everything. The car said 9 degrees. The high today is 15 Celsius, but it was minus 4 this morning around my house. Why I mention that is all of this gorgeous snow is melting, but then refreezing at night. So my mom and her friend are coming out here this afternoon. So is my brother, by the way. Um, but the ice can be just deadly. So I went down to the gym this morning and then came back and went biking on the trails. Like here, for example, I'm not allowed to bike because this is all protected. There are juniper bushes that are part of stabilizing the bench formation here. But I was out on the trails, and if I went off the trail at all, because it's really icy, I'm studded tires. As soon as I hit that deeper snow, just stop. Is Jolene here? Hi. So I'm trying to decide what reveal I should do because it is such a spectacular day. Someone had put up a post the other day saying they miss all of these great outdoors ones. So why don't we start with Sacred Buffalo Guardian Mountain in the distance there. So there it is. So I am up, thinking of my friend Robert here. I'm up by the hoodoos. Um, so hi, Hallie. Um, So I know, Marlene, you're paranoid of bears. The bears around Banff are still asleep. There's one awake around Golden. I have no need for bear spray here right now, though, because no bears are actually denning in this particular area, and there's so many people around that I wandered away. But there is Sacred Buffalo Guardian Mountain, or Buffalo Mountain, or officially Tunnel Mountain. You see those cliffs. And as this weather is getting so nice, I'm already thinking about rock climbing on them. Hi, Nat. So happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I always like to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the Irish side. And I did message, by the way, Dave Kavanagh in Dublin today. Many of you know him. He has a YouTube channel. He is a guide in Dublin's Fair City. I have hung out with him a few times there. And so I sent him a message. And of course, they're well into their day. If you have good eyes way in the distance, you will see the Banff Springs Hotel out there. I'll come around a little further. You might get a better view of it. But just to get a little more spectacular, if we can say that, have a look out here right now. Hi, Henry. So there is mighty Mount Rundle. Now, I have been worried about this crazy warm weather, although I'm a little less bothered. I am going to enjoy these 2 days so incredibly. The sun, this time of day, in about a half hour, it starts hitting my deck. And so I'm actually going to sweep the deck off. I've got all the ice off it. And I'm going to put the chairs out and probably we'll sit out there and have a drink today. So we will be celebrating St. Patrick's Day. And it is an important day in our world in its own way. I mean, obviously, I'm not a person of faith, and my son goes to synagogue rather than Catholic Church. But my father was an Irishman, and I have spent a huge amount of my life in Ireland. By the way, let me just come back for a second here. You're looking at white bark pine over here. one of the most important trees in the high ecosystem. And sorry, we're looking at limber pine right here. It's based on the ratio. It's just lovely, lovely to see. And then, of course, you have the lodgepole pine. But we have both limber pine and white bark pine up on this ridge. And I'm walking up a bench land. So imagine this entire valley, once upon a time, being filled with glacier. And you don't have to go back too far because you're only going back about 14,000 years. And it carved the top off of that mountain in front of us there, Sleeping Buffalo or Sacred Buffalo Guardian Mountain. So you're looking at older dolomite rock down below, whereas you can see the three distinct thrust faults right up here in massive Mount Rundle, which is a true massif, and then Sulphur Mountain on the far side, which soaks up the melt off the back of these mountains and down deep in the soil through a breakdown, really a radioactive breakdown, forces hot water back up, and therefore we have hot springs. And then if you can look over here in the distance, you will look at Mount Norquay. 100% I am going skiing tomorrow. It is a high of 13 here, which is probably 8 or 9 up at Lake Louise. I might bring the gimbal along. I will be very careful skiing tomorrow, though. One of the young English fellow who works up at my gym today, when I was going to check in, he has a knee brace on and his snowboard. You know, it happens to so many people, but when it is radioactive, and it's between the freeze and thaw, you can just look at this ice down here right at the moment. I am going to have to give you a fashion show too, like a proper Rockies fashion show. But I do want to come back and just touch base on the Irish experience a little bit. So, about, well, a third of Americans have some Irish heritage. In this country, obviously, I have French Canadian roots, but dad was an immigrant, so our Irish roots don't go back a long way in this country, which is sort of significant. But just last year, or the year before, in Montreal during some road construction. Hi, Karen. Lovely to have you here. They found a cemetery that goes back to the Great Hunger. They call it a famine cemetery, but it's important, of course, to check one's terms that way. And they were able to do testing on people, and their bones are so brittle they could have probably snapped um, just by being pushed. You know, that's what it was like when people came from Ireland to not this part of the world so much, because the migrations into here came quite a lot later. But there has been a very strong mix between Canadian culture and Irish and Scottish culture, of course. Just point out down below, those are the hoodoos right down there. Hey, Paula, sorry I didn't see you. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, my friend. And Paula and I have hung out a few times. In fact, Paula, you will remember a very specific story. Last summer, I was in Dublin's Fair City, and Paula came so early to meet me, and then we were doing tenders off the ship, and it took forever to come out, which was a shame. Ended up in the confession box, and and I had the whole group of Cajuns with me. Well, some of them already messaged me today saying they wish they were there, and the one fellow Charles is just so lovely. He said, "I wish we were at the confession box today with you and that lovely lady that came and met us." And they were talking about you, Paula. So yeah, the Irish experience. And my dad's family immigrated to New Zealand after the war. Of course, it was a tough time to be Irish at that point. You know, in my lifetime, it's been great, and it is so funny to end up with with a a very Irish name, Patrick Michael Toomey, but a Jewish mother and a and a father who had a very poor experience with the church and boarding schools and all that sort of thing. But the Irish diaspora is massive and it's significant and it's important. And here in Little Banff, of course, because a third of our workers come from abroad, many Irish get work visas here. So maybe tonight, my brother and I might stumble down to one of the pubs in town. My neighbor owns one. Robert, I've been saving this view for you, my dear friend. Is that right, Robert? Yeah, it is. It is, my man. Ready for this, Robert? There we are. There's mighty Cascade Mountain out there. I mean, these are just the perfect bluebird days, as we call them. Now, if it does, it's saying Wednesday, the weather's going to get colder again, temperature's going to drop, and it's going to snow. Yep, I know we're jumping around, but Paul is saying the confession box, I think it's widely considered the best pint of Guinness in Dublin, which is the best pint of Guinness in the world. Um, so, and again, I don't want to forget my Scottish friends up here. Do you see the contrails up there? There's your cross of St. Andrew. See, that was nice of them to do that for you. Now, have a look at Mount Rundle. There's three distinct thrust faults up there, and you can see the waterfalls that are coming up, the frozen waterfalls up through the different sections. That's the three different layers through there. It is just stunning out here. So the reason we flew up to Jasper, went way up on Friday and came back down yesterday, is that at the end of June, Finn will be leading a group up there. And he knows it, but I wanted to go through just the timings and everything. So that's why we did it, just because I'm going away next week, and so is he, and so forth. And it was just so breathtakingly beautiful the last couple of days. And today is just so perfect that we're spoiled. You see, this is why I say I don't bike in areas like this. Right? It's all restoration. The growing season here really is about 60, 65 days. And so and it's amazing, that little bit of human impact. Now um, we are, of course, experiencing just record-breaking volumes of visitors. And I was doing it the other day, on Friday, I was doing a private virtual tour. And someone actually asked the question, how do you feel about tourists living in a community like this? Well, I mean, I earn my living off tourism, and we should like it. But it's managing, of course, numbers that we were never really set up for. This is talking about limber pine cones. This is what I was talking about a little bit earlier there. And there is the Clark's Nutcracker right down there. So Paula, yes, one officially in gold and one bear is awake. I heard some rumbling behind me. But this is about the time of year, usually about the third week of March, but this is really warm. It really depends on food, and of course they wake up because they get hot. You know, isn't that a great view? I don't know how well the screen will catch it, but there's a couple of ravens so high up there, up above Mount Norquay. Norquay there in the distance, the ski area. Norquay was the first premier of Manitoba. He was Métis. He spoke 8 languages apparently. But we're looking out to the mountains way in the distance there, and that is the Massif Range. And uh, and that is fabulous. There's Mount Brett out there, and he was the first doctor here in Banff, and he was actually kind of a genuine Robin Hood type, because the very, very wealthy would come here, and he would charge them whatever he could, and he'd use that to subsidize a hospital here. Now, if you have very good eyes, straight out there in the valley, so you've got Mount Rundle on the left, Sulphur Mountain at the back, and Little Sleeping Buffalo on the right, and there's the Banff Springs Hotel right in the middle of it. That isn't it? It is just a fabulous view. Um, it has actually proven really rather good that here on YouTube they save these videos and I can leave them up there because people will message me and say they missed them. So, um, you know, Arlen, this part of this country is absolutely gorgeous, and I love the whole world. But this is, as they say, they'll carry me out feet first. It's not like I need to find where to live. This is where I'll end up. I will give you I do have my jacket, right? Just so you understand what it's like in Banff this time of year. So I don't have a toucan now. Um, oye, oye, Elizabeth, hola, feliz dia de San Patricio. But you see, then here I am in the shorts. This is like, and if I walked down on Banff Avenue right now, I would be right on the fashion statement. This is how we all look. And I will be out on my deck this afternoon, probably shirtless for a little while. Although, keep in mind, we burn so quickly out here because there's just no filter, right? There's no pollution. So that's why the hat's important. I do have sunscreen on. Yes, I do want to acknowledge my friend Elizabeth is here. If you haven't met her before, Elizabeth is a guide in Arequipa, Peru, which is also a very, very dry climate. It's one of my favorite cities in the world, but in South America. But I know Elizabeth very well. Personally, I've stayed with her family. She's guided groups of mine and friends groups, and she's brilliant. So please put her on your list of things to connect with. Um, Now let's talk about the river valley down below us here. So this is what you call a braided valley. The only reason I'm putting my jacket on right now is just because I don't want to carry it. But you'll see the river's flowing. That is the Bow River, of course. It is flowing towards us. That means I'm looking up to the west. Ice, and they are gorgeous here, aren't they? So when the trains came here in 1883, they followed the river, but suddenly around where the Banff Springs was, you get to the Bow Falls. I almost went down to the Bow Falls for the tour here, but I wanted to come and share these vast perspectives with you. And they couldn't, of course, take a train up waterfalls that go on for. Hi, Joanne. Happy birthday, or happy birthday, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Um, and so at first, Major Douglas, who was the very ornery, very racist man, who was um, the engineer or the surveyor, said we're going to have to tunnel through that mountain. So they said, no, that's ridiculous. Find another way. And so the train track moved up to the other side here. And so therefore, the trains came around to the town of Banff. It's wedged down the other side of this ridge we see. Harriet. All right, I just gave a shout out to my friend Elizabeth in Arequipa, Peru. And ladies and gentlemen, Harriet is here from Uganda. And Harriet is also someone I think is a fabulous guide. And also, I want you to know that it was Harriet who is the person who helped me the most to get all set up on YouTube. She's the one who taught me how to do all this. So, that is just so much appreciated. So please do connect. So this benchland, this formation that we're walking on here, this is just ground up mountains. It's the same thing that gives the color to the water. So this frozen area down in the Braided River section, that won't fill up until June, really, when the melt is on. And then after all the snow melts, which is later in July, then we're going to be left with really just being fed by the glaciers up on the Icefields Parkway, where we drove down yesterday. Um, and that's why you get that deep turquoisey color later in the year. Now that is fun and beautiful, but we're hoping if the snow and everything comes back on Wednesday and Thursday, then that is great news because we need more snowpack. And again, if this melts and hydrates the land, which it's doing, and then we get more, that's good news. But our snowpacks are lower than they should be. Nice, happy young family out walking along. It is funny, I was chatting with a friend the other day, and I really do believe in our own way. We are a little more kind of wholesome here. It's, like, life is not. The Canadians are known for their sense of humor, absolutely, but it's a healthy, and you feel so good and alive when you're out here in this kind of environment. So it's well, the river, Diane. So Diane's coming in May. Generally speaking, this is quite typical. It only freezes over if you get like a week solid of the -40s, and of course it's always flowing underneath. Otherwise, it would wipe everything out. Hi, Karen. I am up. Hi, Karen. Nice to see you. I am up by the hoodoos. So, Karen, you've been here. So the town of Banff, there's Sleeping Buffalo or Tunnel Mountain. So down the other side is where Banff is, and there's the Banff Springs Hotel. So I'm not technically in the town. I'm on Tunnel Mountain Road, up where the campgrounds are. And just a few days ago, I was cross country skiing up here, and now I was out biking because already so much is melting. So it was officially 9 degrees in the car. The high is 14 or 15 today. So that's where I am. I'm well, where there's a little patch of soil right there, the one little white dot. That's really you're within the limits of Banff town there, and that's about 2 kilometers from here. To put it in some perspective about where I physically am. So coming in May, usually you will still have ice along the edge of the river. Remember that water, even in the high summer, and you've been here, Diane, even in high summer, it's still only about 4 degrees Celsius. You have no snow, Robert. I heard Toronto just had a totally dry winter. I don't know if you're seeing in the snow down below, but there's very distinct footprints. Those would not be human footprints, they'd be elk. So the elk are probably out. That's the golf course down around there. And I might go. Well, I'm going skiing tomorrow for sure because it's not often. It's going to be this sunny at Lake Louise and probably 10 degrees. So it'll be slushy snow. So I won't. I will really exaggerate my terms and dig in. But you could even ski in shorts, except you end up burning your legs so much. But yeah, the river will fill up. It depends. It depends what happens this year. So Lake Louise lost its ice on May 15th. Normally it's the first week of June. So that kind of puts it in some perspective. So I think it's so hard to predict what things will look like now. Flowers are more, well, 2 years ago the flowers weren't until July. So, but coming back to the fact that it is St. Patrick's Day, it is amazing. Hi, Bobby. Nice to see you. It's a beautiful day. It is I was in Ireland, I guess, 3 times last year, but I mean, the poor Irish this winter were hammered with storm after storm after storm, whereas and so were the Australians, right? The other side of these El Nino effects and the Canadian Maritimes, whereas here has been, drier and warmer than normal, which is just so typical of these El Nino years. It's just that we've had 2 years in a row. So I'll be over, of course, to you in June there, Paula. And of course, you're going to be up in Alaska, you lucky person. Hey, how's it going? Hi. Um, but I was in Ireland. I did a very long tour over 2 weeks in Ireland in April, and we only had rain one afternoon, and then I flew away, and it rained for 3 months. But just my family in Ireland are in Cork, and they really all are actually. So both down in the town of Cove and Cork City and all over, So that's Toomey as a surname comes from down around there, and Cork City I find is I mean it's lovely ever since it was 2003. I think it was the European um, cultural capital, and really dressed it up. I lived there in the early '90s, so I was about 3 years old. Um, yeah, no kidding, Karen. But yeah, I lived there in the early '90s when it was still. I mean, unemployment was still over 20% in those days. I mean, what an ebb and flow. But it is amazing to think of a country with the island of Ireland. Oh, and by the way, Paul, I keep meaning to. I don't know if I can send them to you. We get so many ads. I mean, obviously Canada is now being targeted as a market for Ireland, and despite the fact that there's some people think there's a border in Ireland, um, they are advertising the whole of no, is that right, Brie? The whole of Ireland is advertised over here, and they actually call it the island of Ireland. And so it's very interesting that they're clearly going after that market. And I'm seeing specifically tours like there was one during that we were watching the hockey last night. Very, very bad finish to the game for the Oilers last night. My son is a big Oilers fan. Um, but it was the Dairy Girls, right? But it's all just come to the island of Ireland. And so it is interesting that they're really targeting clearly that Canadian market. I think it's partly because there's the flights now from Toronto into Dublin. Do you remember when the pandemic was winding down? Toronto was the most delayed airport on earth of the major airports, and Dublin had the most lost luggage. That's when Finn and I flew over. So we did carry on, and we were good. Uh, so that was a little different. Um, yeah, again, that map name is so interesting, and if you have, and it was, I mean, it was interesting. I had a nice chat. So I only have one first aunt in the whole wide world, and she lives down in New Zealand. And she was obviously my dad's sister, but she was 17 years younger. So we had a long talk just a few weeks ago, big catch up. But she was actually born in New Zealand. But my cousin, her daughter, lives in Paris on, hi Merle, hi there, lives in Paris on her Irish passport, even though she's New Zealand born and raised. And it's just so funny, these family connections, because her partner, who's a lovely man, law professor, is French, but Jewish French. So we have all these interconnections in our families, which is pretty neat. So do have a look at that mountain up there. At its very top is 2,949 meters. So it's a slight bit lower than Cascade Mountain. And Cascade was the one where we had, and back in 2020, or 2021, we had an earthquake. 3.9, it lasted 4.5 seconds. But hey, that was our earthquake. So we don't have any terrible geothermal things. What is for us a natural disaster is going to be forest fire. And can you imagine? This is why we want big snowpack. Because if it all comes down through here with high winds, we hear about these sort of things. So that's what we're really on top of. Patty, happy Patty's Day. Um, and there you a little hint of my Albertan there. We do use howdy as well. And like I say, everybody's welcome. It's fun. So let's what it is. I'm watching my step a little bit, and I came up here because I wanted to start in the red chairs. And of course, everybody's here in the red chairs today, which is pretty understandable. The red chairs have been there ever since 2017. Hi, Marianne. Nice to see you here. So happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone from all over the world. And here in a little resort town like Banff, of course, you're always going to have Paddy Day festivals. So, yeah. And that's from the young ladies from some other country, but they were carrying bear spray, so good on them. So here's the famous red chairs. Yeah, but this, I mean, I know everyone loves Cascade Mountain, but the reason I love Rundle, aside from just that huge dominant effect on it there, is it explains all the geology in just one fell swoop. So driving up and down to Jasper there with Finn. I was quizzing him on a lot of that, and you know what? That kid knows. I mean, it's amazing how much he knows. Given I've got a few years of practice on him. Now look at the light. There's the hoodoos down there. So hoodoos, what we're standing on is a bench formation. So this is the Rocky Mountains. Of course, are very distinctly rocky because they've been ground up by the glaciers. Well, this is the ground up mountains. That's what we're looking at here. And then you get little bits that get a hard cap on them, and they'll form. Now, hoodoos form in places like Cappadocia in the middle of Turkey for different reasons, because that was volcanic ash, and then you see them down in Bryce Canyon for similar reasons like this, but they have a big salt extrusion underneath. In our case, it's because it's softer limestone, which erodes very easily, and you're left with those pillars. And if I look out in this direction, we're Mount Arundel, exactly. Thank you. Now we're looking really to the east there. So that's the way you drive right around. If you could see through the corner of the mountain on the right, you'd actually see the town of Canmore, about 17, 18 kilometers away. But then you wind out and hang a bit of a left and you go out to the foothills. And from here, it's about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half, I count, into Calgary. So that gives a sense of where we are. So those are very much the front ranges of the mountains out here in the distance, and the front ranges are spectacular because over those ones, one more, and boom, you're in the prairies. So I cannot wait to take you all up Mount Yamnuska this year, and then the east end of Rundle. I'll do lots of hiking this summer because I'm going to try and stay home and just do local guiding. Getting lots of inquiries, by the way, so please keep spreading the word, but lots of inquiries. Um, and I don't want to miss summers here because they are short and intense. And today, today is just going to be some nice, beautiful deck time out there. And like I say, we're going to celebrate, and we're going to have long talks about my dad, of course, and all the times in Ireland, but we're not eating Irish food. That's the only thing that my boy struggled with. He's not a real meat and potatoes guy, so he and his girlfriend are cooking ginger beef and ginger chicken and stir fry. So that's what we're having. Hi, Michael. I was just here. I don't think you'll hear it through my headphones, but there is another giant raven, the Rocky Mountain ravens, the biggest of the raven family, and they stay all winter. Very, very intelligent birds, but their sounds echo across the valley. Hey, Jolene, sorry, I thought I saw your name earlier. Just above, actually, there's loads of them right now above Sleeping Buffalo Mountain there. So yes, we're going to have a nice sort of either very late lunch or extremely early dinner, that kind of thing, and just hang out and have some. Yeah, and ginger beef is very, very popular here because of course Calgary and southern Alberta. Yeah, the corned beef and cabbage. Uh, Soda bread. I like the soda bread. I mean, when I go to Ireland, I have the Irish breakfast is hard to beat, but yeah, it's not really the way I eat personally anymore. Um, but but to, to each their own when it comes to those things. And I don't even have any Guinness in the house, although I'd be a Murphy's fellow myself anyway. So I probably will have a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, but this is going to be one of those like vegetarian weeks before, and I always do those dry vegetarian weeks before I fly off. So I am flying on Friday over to Venice of all places, but I'm doing this private trip that does go into Croatia, but it's actually spending most of its time in Albania. So that's what I'm doing. I was going to come for a visit to the UK, but the details were very short, and so I'm actually flying home from Rome because I'm only going over for about 10 days. But then I turn around, I come home for 10 days, and then I'm actually going back to Spain. So I'll be squeezing in absolutely 100% some virtual tours in Albania because I have not been there. The clients know I haven't been there, and it's a place I've been dying to get to. And obviously, Croatia, I ran a trip there very recently, and it was beautiful. And I might even try and put up one little walk in Venice for the fun of it. I don't have a lot of free time. So that's what's happening in my life. Oh, Spain starts in Madrid. And this trip is totally sold out. It's been sold out for, well, as soon as we designed it. But that's Madrid going down to Seville, and then we're actually with Gibraltar, of course, and then also a day over to Morocco. So, and then I fly home from Madrid and then our dear friend um, Diane comes here, and she's here for never long enough, but it's so exciting. And then I'm going to be up in Yukon, and then I have some people from Louisiana coming here. I'm taking them up to Jasper, and then I'm going back to Ireland. So that's the next few months. Allison, this sounds so much fun. So I'm looking so forward to it. But I'm really going to the Albania part more as a coordinator rather than obviously a guide. So it'll be with local guides. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we've spent a happy half hour out here together. So I want to do once again, just repeat, happy St. Patrick's Day. You know, we've done last year and the year before. Um, I've done these, discussing Irish roots. There's some relevance in Calgary and this part of the world. One of the videos that might be interesting to many of you, well, you can, Joanne. Um, just everything is, yeah. My fall is very French, but then, by the way, I am running October. Very seriously running the trip to Japan. There's already, I think, 17 people have sent in deposits for that. So that's enough. It's running for sure. But I'm trying to get it to about 22 because that actually drops the price because the agents tier the pricing. And then I'm just waiting to get Japan secured. But then November will be Panama, Costa Rica, and Nicaragua. Now, I know exactly what I want to do. It's the transport thing that I have to factor in. So keep that in mind. Um, and then a couple of other things coming up, but I'm going to put on a winter Rockies, which people have asked me for years because I've run, probably 50 of them over the years. And so I'm getting one set up without Jasper. The road closes too much these days, but staying at Chateau Lake Louise. And also lots of people inquiring, and Paula's coming. So we're going to do Oaxaca next year, again in January in Mexico, as I always do every January. But if you're coming from away, I will start for an extra 3 days in Mexico City, make it a longer trip. And for people who want to see it, then Oaxaca, and then down to the coast. So, yeah, 100%. Paula, someone else from the UK. So 100%. That's all coming. So there's lots to look forward to. But on this happy sort of a day, I think I shouldn't be doing my Irish accent, but it does sneak out a little bit. Although it sneaks out as a Canadian tone as well. And it's so funny. My dad always had an accent, but it was a mix of all sorts of things. I mean, as a young child, was in the UK and then New Zealand, and his parents, like my grandmother, never lost her accent, and she lived up to Sláinte. She lived to 100, and she'd been in New Zealand for, I think it was 47 years. No, it had to be much more than that. It was 1947. She had those wa three T's because she was educated in the Irish language. So anyway, everyone, listen, big hugs, and thank you for whatever support you can offer, and spread these around. So peace and love, and happy Paddy's Day for anyone with or without Irish roots. Um, so it's so nice to connect, and lots of love to all of you, and so many fun stories to tell. Please make sure, I see 73 people are on here now. It's great numbers. Please hit that like button because that's what they tell me you have to do. So, but I'll just leave you with some beautiful views out here of the spectacular mountains. All right, have a great day, and I am looking forward to food in about 3 hours. Lots of love, everyone.